We invite you to grab one on your way out, just so you have an idea of who we are and what we do at Abundant Life Church. Let me share a few announcements with you, because there's a number of things that you may want to participate in. This afternoon at the Clayton Theater in Dagsboro, they're still showing the movie The Jesus Revolution. And what has happened here is the balcony of the Clayton Theater has been reserved for any of you that want to go for free. And you can see Renee or Howdy for a ticket. So there's room for 75 people. And even if you've seen it before, you can still go see it again. But that's this afternoon at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, is that right? Did I get everything correct? All right, 3 o'clock this afternoon, Dagsboro, Clayton Theater, old-style theater, and they will have popcorn. You have to buy that, though. Okay? Monday, we have Woven Together Ministries, Monday night at 6:30, prayer, 7 o'clock start, correct? All right, Wednesday, Bible study. We're in the book of Genesis, slowly plodding our way through. Finding some treasures as we go. This coming Saturday, there's a men's, everybody say men's. We don't say that very often. It's usually women's, but men's knife throwing and food event. Did I get that right? Meats. We will have the meats. And that's at 10:30? 10:30 right here, and there's a contest. I don't know how you win, but I've never thrown the big knives. I mean, they're big knives. I don't know how. I've never done it before, so it'll be a new experience for most of us.
Jason has said he'll charge one mammal, but we expect some other mammals to be presented.
Let me interpret that for you. Meat. You're welcome to bring a special barbecue or some kind of meats. There will be fellowship, knife throwing, and some food, some meats. There can be a fire available. We got some stuff out. We could do a little campfire thing there. Got the barbecue grill as well. We'll do whatever it takes. We're going to do the man thing. In case you didn't hear that, he said, don't bring your feelings. We're not going in after those. Okay, and next Sunday, Vince Sellers will be with us. And he was with us in July, or 1st of August last year, and he's been to the Ukraine and Africa, Kenya, and so he's going to come back and share with us and minister next Sunday. April the 5th, Christopher Boda from India will be in town with us. You'll get a chance to meet him. Easter Sunday, we have a kids' presentation, a drama presentation. And is there practice this week? At what time? Noon. On Wednesday. Noon on Wednesday this week for the kids. April 15th, there's a Bible museum trip. For those that want to go, $35 is the cost. A bus has been secured, and sign-up is needed, so we have make sure we have enough room. The bus will hold, what will the bus hold, 40 or 50? What will the bus hold? About 50, and I think there's still about 20 seats left. There's at least 30 that are going, so there's still room, $35. That's April the 15th. It'll be an all-day deal. Leave first thing in the morning, because it takes, it's not a walk through like a ride at the amusement park. There's a lot of great stuff in there, and prepare to have some food purchased somewhere along the way as you're there as well. And you will be walking quite a bit. There's elevators, but there's 4 or 5 floors. I was over there at a pastor's gathering, and they took us for a tour when it was under construction. That building used to have a train that would come inside of it, and they'd unload it. It was retrofitted for this. And the primary sponsors of the Bible Museum is the Green family, who were the owners of Hobby Lobby. So they are the ones behind it, and they were the instigators of it and the primary funders of the Bible Museum. So it's worth your trip. There's a Zoe Ministry Workday the 22nd. May the 13th and 14th, Darby Slayton will be with us. May 1 to 4, the Bible reading will be on the circle. And May the 6th, there will be a boutique here where ladies can come and dress up and practice. If you have a spare clothing rolling cart available, we are taking any and all donations of that kind. Did I get that right? Okay. I believe there's a list. Yeah, we do have a lot going on that you can participate with. So, where's my daughter Anna? Hand off a child. All right. The Lord's already directed us by the Spirit into some things, but there's going to be some things that the kids are going to be involved in today. And so this business about the children and coming home and all that, it's part of what God's doing today.
All right, today the kids are going to be learning about who God uses in the Bible, and it's not always the one with the best character. Got their life together. So they're going to be practicing praying, and so it's going to be instant. As they learn, they have instant practice. So at the very end of the service, one of the older ones are going to be released back into the service, and they are going to be up here to pray for you. So it's going to be like super awkward for them. It's going to be 100% quick, but they just need to be provided an opportunity to apply what they're learning, because you can't always learn it and then never do it, then you never do it. So anyway, and for you who want prayer for something, they don't need a long drawn out story. My knee's been hurting. I've gone to the doctor. I've done all this stuff. They don't need to know all that. They don't have to do that information. Like, hey, my knee's hurting, so they can pray for it, okay? So providing those types of opportunities, it can be, I'm just going through a rough time.
Slow down.
Whatever. Yeah, sorry.
You're getting out of breath here.
But we would like
you need to make this lay up.
There's going to be a couple of groups. We like you to be able, for all of them to have an opportunity to pray for you. Okay? So I'll have adults up here with each group, but just be prepared to come up with a prayer request of some sort, anything. But let them do it, and it's not going to be fabulous, but their job is to be
fabulous.
I'm following that with saying their job is to be obedient. God's job is to do the rest. So what they're going to say is not going to be
it may not be articulate,
right,
but it's going to be effective.
But they're just learning to be obedient. So that was what I was saying.
Amen. So now we want to let that group of prayer warriors and kids go to the back room for their preparation. Kids can go back to the back. Bless the Lord. All right. All right, there is going to be another group of sweatshirts. Some have been asking for sweatshirts that have this logo on it. Doesn't this shirt look nice? Yes. Okay. It's not about me, but it's about they're going to put together another order of sweatshirts, and Renee will be the one to give an order. Do you have a sign up, or you just personally contact? Okay, just see her if you are interested in a sweatshirt. There are different types. There's zip-ups. There's pullovers, hoodies, whatever. She'll tell you the types. Okay. All right. What a good day. Tell me something that is adults only. Taxes. That's pretty good. I wasn't thinking about that, but if you earn an income and you're 7 years old, I guess you could be considered an adult, because they probably have to file. But adults only. Should be marriage, yes. There's people that are trying to break those rules, but yeah, marriage is an adults only activity. Pardon me? Parenting, adults only activity. Military, you have to be a certain age. You should be an adult, a responsible adult. Many of you have heard stories of World War II when people wanted to go and they were 15 and they lied and they got in and they served and, worked their way in because they were persistent and got by the rules. But there's certain things that we consider adults only. Nobody under the age of 21. What would that be? Going into a bar? Can't go into a bar. Got to have your ID. You know what that tells me? That tells me that it's dangerous for everybody. But they presume that if you're 21, you've matured enough to handle everything you're about to do. What a false idea. But we have this concept that we should restrict those who haven't reached a certain level of approval. Maturity is the word that we would use, but it's approval. We don't approve of you doing that yet. We don't trust you going into that establishment and coming out safe for me. In fact, our history tells us that if somebody your age goes in, when you come out, you're going to be dangerous for people like me. So we want to restrict that activity so that you aren't dangerous under the age of 21. Under the age of 18. What? You got to be 18 to sign up to vote because you're considered at that age to be a responsible citizen. I don't think there's a whole lot of responsible 18-year-olds anymore, adult behavior, the ones you hear about anyway. The ones that are in the news don't usually have that adult behavior. But to be a citizen, to vote, 18. Also, to sign a marriage license, to get married. You need to be a certain age so that they could say, we trust that your judgment that you will be able to keep the covenant you're about to enter into. Now, that language is seldom used in our society today, but that's what the initial intent was, that you will have the ability to maintain covenantal relationship, that you have the responsibility enough that when you sign this marriage contract and you stand before a pastor, priest, or a judge, that you will keep your promise. Okay? 18. So there's certain things that we just don't believe people are ready for. 16. Okay? The reason your insurance rates are as high as they are is because we give licenses to those who are under the opinion that their driving skills match the number of their age. But they don't have any driving skills, they just have permission. I've met a few of those. Have you met a few of those? So we want them restricted so that they're safe. So we put them through a class and give them 7 hours of driving while somebody's sitting in the seat beside them and tell them you can drive. I'm convinced that until you have driven in conditions that are unfavorable and come through without injuring anybody, then you know how to drive. You get out in the snow and the ice and you drive and you come home safely and you haven't hit anybody, you haven't run off the road, you have learned how to drive. How many of you hate rush hour traffic in the city on the Beltway? How many would avoid it at all costs? Let me see your hand. You'd avoid it at all costs. Yeah. See, you're not my people. I took children on school buses into that traffic in Washington, D.C., and Baltimore and Philadelphia when I was the principal of a Christian school. That never deterred me, but it does deter some people. But I had confidence because I grew up on a farm. I was driving tractors and trucks around the farm before I was even 16, so it's just different for different people. But 16, you can go to Maryland at the age of 16 and get married. Unless they've changed it. 16. I had a relative that did that. He did that because the girl he wanted to marry wasn't 18. So they eloped. They made the decision on their own. Unfortunately, that marriage didn't last. So, there's certain things that we don't believe, that we have accepted as normal, that if you're not of a certain age, you shouldn't participate. You should wait. And then we've also thought that if you've done enough bad things along the way, that you shouldn't get permission even after you've reached that age because you've shown poor judgment. You can lose your license. You can lose other things. You can lose your freedom. Now, what about in the religious world? What do we believe? Somebody's driving. See? I knew there was something about driving that needed to be talked about today. What do we believe about age in the church? Where I grew up, when you were younger, you didn't participate in communion. You sat in the pews while everybody else went up front, and you just, what are they doing up there? Why can't I go? And so I grew up in that, and I also participated. My first kind of official participation was as an acrolite. How many have ever been an acrolite? How many don't even know what an acrolite is? Okay, there we go. All you unchurched people. Good for you. You don't have a lot to get rid of. An acrolite is the young person that they dress up in the formal garb, and they carry a brass candle lighting stick with a cup on the end. And when that person walks in at the beginning of the service, that's the beginning of the service. Because you walk in, and then you go up, and you have these candles that have to be lit, and they have to be maintained during the service. It's like, I guess it represents the light of God. I never really knew what it represented, but I was an acrolite. You'd go in, you light, then you walk off, and then the service would start. And then after everybody got done with the service and the last hymn was sung, you had to go back out with the cup and put the candles out. That was the official end of the service. If the acolyte went fishing, they might still be there because you can't end the service. How many been in services like that? You know what I'm talking about? You don't usually see a 40-year-old acolyte. It's something that somebody younger can do. So I participated in that. But there wasn't much else. You sing in the choir. If you have the kids' choir, the kids' class might do some program, in the Christmas program or something like that. You could do those. But otherwise, children were just kind of, wait your turn. Wait your time. Be faithful for 15 years. And then maybe you can do something. It's no wonder kids get bored with church. Unless you have strong family ties to keep you within that system, it's a boring place to be. I remember being in the choir, and the preacher's preaching, and we're sitting there playing games on the bulletin. Games where you mark lines on something or other. Yeah. Huh? No, that was the iPad we had. Yeah, that was about it. And I remember this one guy. He always cheated. In church, in the choir, standing right behind the pastor. But you couldn't call him out because then you're both up there playing a game. Have no idea what the pastor's preaching. It's just how it was. How many of you did something like that when you were younger? I see a few hands, yeah. Occupied yourself. If I sat down in the pew with my grandmother, she always had wintergreen lifesavers. So we could last as long as it took. Didn't want us to get out of order. How many had a grandmom that did that for you? A few, okay. So, when do kids get started? When are they allowed? What vision do we have for kids? Turn with me to 1 Samuel. Samuel is the story of a miraculous situation, a woman who could not have a baby, wanted a baby, and she wept before the Lord and said, if you give me a son, I'll give him back to you. And God said, okay. He gave her a son. Now, if you say that to God, what are you going to do when he gives you one? Because this is the thing you've been wanting for years in marriage. You've prayed for it. You've cried for it. And now you have it, and this precious little thing is in your hands. You nurse this baby. You have a bond with this baby. But you told God, if you give him to me, I'll give him to you. Now, where are you going to give him to? You're going to give him to the priest, which is not where you live. Moms, how would that work? Give that baby and not see him but once a year when you go offer a sacrifice. And so, in chapter 1 of Samuel, verse 24, it says, now when she had weaned him, she took him up with her with a 3-year-old bull and she presented him. In verse 27, for this boy I prayed, and the Lord has given me my petition. I've asked of him. So I've dedicated him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he is dedicated to the Lord. And she gave him to Eli and went home. How old was he? 3, 4, whatever weaning would be. 3 or 4. Left him there. And then every year, chapter 2, verse 18, now Samuel was ministering before the Lord as a boy wearing a linen ephod. So he was dressed up like a little priest, like a Levite, because that's what he had become. He was in the family of the priests. His mother would make him a little robe and bring it to him every year, and would come up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. So every year she would make him the next size robe, loose-fitting robe that would fit, so it wouldn't have to be form-fitting, enough that it would work for the next year. And she would prepare every year to go see her son and give him a robe and then go home. He might know who she was when she was there. He might forget her. Once a year is not a lot of contact. For a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old. But he's ministering before the Lord. He's helping out in the ministry. 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old. He begins to develop a reputation. Chapter 2, verse 21, And the Lord visited Hannah and gave her more children. And the boy Samuel grew before the Lord. So he's growing before the Lord. Chapter 2, verse 26. Now the boy Samuel was growing in stature and in favor, both with the Lord and with men. Is there anybody else in the Bible that it says that about? Grew in stature and in favor with God and with men. You don't wait till you're 50 to grow in favor. You don't wait till you're 20 to grow in favor. You don't wait till you have permission from the crowd to grow in favor. You go hang out with the Lord. Participate in what He's doing. And then you can grow in favor. And so, chapter 3, verse 1, the boy Samuel was ministering to the Lord before Eli, and word from the Lord was rare in those days, and visions were infrequent. Samuel was ministering to the Lord. Everybody say, to the Lord. To the Lord. See, he wasn't just doing tabernacle responsibilities. He was ministering to the Lord. Samuel had a relationship with God that came from his start with his mother. That when he got there, his relationship and his purpose was already entrenched. And being in a household with Eli and his sons who had turned far away from God didn't change his heart. What you instill at the beginning will overcome the challenges that face your children.
That's it.
Having a good foundation will keep them even if they have to hang out with those who don't have the same heart.
There we go.
So they could be coming home. If you train them up in the way that they should go, when they're older, they will not depart. So that's the picture of Samuel. Now, where is Christy? Is she ready? Okay. This is a multi-purpose day. It's just wonderful. Because we're talking about stuff with our kids.
So I mentioned to you about Operation Love Them. We're going to roll out next week.
When did you do that? Remind them.
When I preached, I don't know, was it a month ago?
Whenever, yeah. You've had time to
while
forget,
ago.
so let's just reintroduce it.
Yes, so Operation Love Them is where you're going to be investing in our children. So the purpose of Operation Love Them is to invest in our children through prayer, prophecy, words, dreams, and gifts. We're going to help our children discover their callings and destinies. We're going to train ourselves to be in practice of prayer, and we're going to create a culture of being otherly. We're going to do this with every other week. You will have either the prayer, the prophecy, word, dream, or gift for your child. I'd like for you to interact with them every week. Just say hi, acknowledge them, so you build some sort of relationship. You're going to write down what you pray or hear. You're going to date it. You're going to speak it over the child in their presence, in the presence of their parents. And you're going to give the written copy to the parents. Rule about that, though, no cursive. You're going to write in print. Yeah. The things you're going to seek the Lord about is, who are they? Who are they supposed to be? And how can I help them get there? I have a list of things that if you need help or prompting as what to ask God about, it's who'd you create them to be? What's your favorite thing about them? What do they do that moves your heart? What did you create about them on purpose? Where are you taking them? What do they need to hear from you, and how can I invest in their future? When you invest in them, some of the rules about that is it must align with what the Lord is speaking about them. You're not giving them stuff to give them stuff. It must have a purpose and longevity. It must be obvious. You're not going to give the artist a box of a bunch of random things and expect them to create abstract art with it. It's not to make them feel good or to make them like you. They don't have to be impressed with what you give them or what you say to them, because some of them most likely will not be. Some of you might not have the ability to give what we would consider great gifts. You might only have $2. If you have $2, you're going to give your $2, sow a seed, and watch God do something with it. We've had many stories about seeds. I'll make this brief. When I moved to Texas, Anita gave me an envelope of money and said, this is seed, and anybody else who wants to sow into this, give her some money. I went down to Texas with $1,500 that my job was to give it away. I have an outrageous number of testimonies of giving that money away and blessing people. Some of y'all don't know that you actually supported two of my friends in residency who were not able to either buy food or pay their phone bill. Y'all sustained them.
Yeah.
So sow your seed and let God bless somebody with it. Ask the Holy Spirit what it should be. The rules about participating in this, it is for members only at this time. The safety of our children is our top priority. All activity regarding Operation Love Them will take place at church, at normal scheduled events like Sunday morning or Wednesday night Bible study, there will be no activities in relation to Operation Love Them happen off the church campus. They're not going to your house. We're not having coffee dates because this is a church event. We're putting this on, so there needs to be accountability to the leadership in this. Another rule is you are not giving guidance or instruction to the children. That's their parents' job. We'd like you to understand that the children might not understand exactly what's happening. That's okay. They might not respond to you how you would like or expect. I fully expect you to give some kids a word and them to look at you like, I don't want to do that. That's okay. Darby tells a story of he gave this word to a woman and said, you're going to work with the homeless. And she said, absolutely not. And within 6 months, she was working with the homeless. Don't expect a gushing thank you from these kids about what you give them. And do not expect to be given credit when something comes to pass, because it came from God, not you. The best example I have of this is my Aunt Gail loves to give gifts to all of the great nephews and nieces. She buys all of them gifts. Which is a bunch of them. It's a lot of them. And my husband's and my job often is to be the courier, to bring these gifts to the appropriate children. I don't expect a thank you for the gift that she invested in, she thought of, she wrapped, she paid for. All I did was deliver it. So I have this little template for people who need it. We're not expecting these words and dreams to be paragraphs or stories. I'm expecting you to write down about 3 sentences. It says, when I gave David the word, said, you're the people's pastor. And I said a couple things about that. So there's a child's name, your name, a date, the method, which I would say is the prayer, is it a dream, is it a prophecy, and then the subject, and I would say for David, it's the people's pastor. And what does that look like? You're hospitable, you love people, you're going to teach. It's that simple. So, rolling out next week. We're going to get you your assigned child.
Say, oh, I didn't ask for a child. Neither did Eli. But the child that Eli was given changed the world. And so we're going to invest in our children. So it's going to be an adventure. How many remember my hat and cane last week? All right, we're going on an adventure. Oh, hallelujah. Okay. I don't have flip-flops. I had to borrow those. Now let's turn to Matthew because I want to show you a few things. Matthew 15 is where we're going to start. It's often the case with parents. A couple will get married, and they haven't decided yet that they want to be a part of a church. They grew up in a church. You know, they have some religious background, but they get married, but they're just happy to be together and non-committal, and and then they have a baby. And then something happens a few years after they have the baby. They want the baby to have some of the influence that they had in the past, so maybe we ought to start going to church. That happens a lot. It's like the kids. The need of the kids to have some concept of God will bring people to church. Not because they got saved, but just because they think that's something they ought to do. Right? So, and then the other thing that will often bring parents to present their children is crisis. There's a crisis. The child is sick. We got problems. Where are we going to go for help? And then they begin to look. So in Matthew chapter 15, in verse 21, Parents, if you've never been a parent, you don't know how to do it. You just know you've seen other people do it. You don't know how to do it. How many rode a bike? How many ever had a bike? Everybody here had a bike? Okay. And when you first got on that bike, two-wheel bike with no training wheels, when you first got on that bike, what was your experience? Fell? How many fell? How many were perfect when you got on it? I got one perfect one back here, the people's pastor. And because you got that bike, you had an opportunity, but you had to get on it. You had to try it out, and you had to experience the failures and the successes. My first bike, going around in the driveway, lost control, ran right into the side of the chicken house. Wound up sitting on the bar between the handlebars and the chair and the seat. Yeah, memorable. Verse 21, chapter 15. And Jesus went away from there, withdrew into the district of Tyre and Sidon, and behold, a Canaanite woman came out from the region. She had troubles. She had a challenge. She had a child challenge. She came out and said, crying, said, "Have mercy on me, O Lord." Now, she wasn't doing it quietly because she's outside trying to get his attention. See, when you don't care if anybody sees you getting somebody's attention, then you really mean business. "Have mercy on me, Son of David. My daughter is cruelly demonized and possessed." This is a Canaanite woman. What's she calling him? Son of David. She understands the prophecy that there's something coming. So she's declaring, "Son of David, I know who you are. I've heard the evidence. I know you can help me. I'm not coming to just anybody. I know you can. You've got a heritage. You've got a promise. You've got an anointing. And I want to tap into it today. I'm desperate for my daughter." Coming to Jesus in desperation to help her child. And he didn't answer her. What a sad thing. Didn't answer her. Why didn't he answer her? Didn't he love her? He did love her. God is love. But if you can be easily deterred, if you can be offended when you're in need, you will forfeit the promise that becomes yours. And so she kept saying, "Have mercy on me. Have mercy on me." And he wasn't talking to her. And the disciples said, "Would you please tell her to go away? She's bothering us." And because of that dialogue and exchange, he said, "Well, I was sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." Now, that's true, but the Gentiles are going to trust in him as well. But see, he's pulling her into the exercise of her faith that goes past offense. If you can be offended, you forfeit things. And so she came and bowed down to him and said, "Yes, yes, Lord. It's not good to take the children's bread." She said, "Yes, Lord, but even the dogs get to feed on the crumbs. I'll take the leftovers. I don't want their part. I just want what I can have." And his response was, "Oh, woman, great is your faith. Great is your faith. Be it done to you as you wish for your daughter." So the first example we have here is with children, is somebody coming because their child's in distress, presenting to Jesus, I need your help. Now, the daughter wasn't even there. Now, you don't have to arrange a big deal. All you have to do is get to the source, and things will happen. Chapter 17. And in verse 15, "Lord, have mercy on my son. He's a lunatic." Now, I know you think yours are lunatics, but they're not lunatics. They might be off base, they might be out of order, but they're not lunatics. The word lunatic there means he's moonstruck or crazy. I mean, he's off. He's got issues. My son, he's a lunatic. He's ill. He falls into the fire and often into the water. I'm always have to be on guard. I can never rest. I never know when he's going to fall in. He might die. You know, if you have that situation, you never rest. You're always on 911 wherever he goes. I brought him to your disciples, and they could not cure him. And Jesus answered and says, oh, perverse generation, how long am I going to put up with you? Bring him to me. And he came and he cast the devil out. So the father, desperate, years of investing his time trying to save his son from self-destruction, from demonic activity, comes to Jesus and presents him to Jesus. So here again, in crisis, presenting children in crisis for rescue. Don't know what to do. Chapter 9. In verse 18. While he was saying these things, an official of the synagogue came and bowed down before him and said, my daughter has just died. Now that's pretty tough. My daughter just died. What would you be doing if your daughter just died? Making funeral arrangements? This father's not making funeral arrangements. He's going to a source. He's in crisis. He doesn't have what it takes. He needs help, but he goes to Jesus. My daughter just died. But I know if you will come lay your hand on her, she'll live. Just lay your hand on her, and she'll live. Now that's pretty good faith, don't you think? If you just come touch her, I know she'll live. Jesus rose and began to follow him. And this is where the woman with the issue of blood got healed on the way there. And they got there, and she was raised from the dead. Chapter 14. Verse 21. This is where Jesus fed the 5,000. And the 5,000, they were gathered there. That's the 5,000 men, because it was 5,000 men besides the women and the children. Children. What are they bringing children out there like that for? Why would you take your children to church? Why would you take them to a Christian festival concert? Why would you take them to an event where they're going to be a nuisance? How many of you have ever not gone to an event that you wanted to go to because you didn't want to have to deal with your kids? It happens. Because it's management. It's management. We used to walk in, we didn't go out to eat a lot, but we'd walk into a restaurant with our either five or six kids, however many we had at the time, and you could just see people look at us. They were not afraid of the food they were going to eat. They were afraid of the chaos that we might bring. How many of you, well, I don't have to ask questions. And we didn't have a lot of chaos. And people would, your family is really well behaved. Yes, they're supposed to be. That's how we've been working. so that we don't have to worry about that. But these folks are out here on a hillside. And they don't have McDonald's out there. They don't have potato chip bags out there. In fact, when it came time to figure out what do we have? Well, we got 5 loaves and 2 fish. For thousands? What did they have for the kids? I'll tell you what they had for the kids. They had a desire to be with Jesus. And if they get close to Jesus, that'll be more important than if I had a sandwich for them. Sometimes we have to count the cost. What's more important? And so these folks, they were out there with their children. Now, it wasn't children's ministry day. It was just ministry. And their kids are getting to see what's going on. You need to hang out with what's going on. It'll change your life. The Jesus Revolution movie that some of us are going to see this afternoon, part of it has on there, I understand, I haven't seen it yet, Explo 72, which was down in Dallas, Texas. Billy Graham was one of the speakers. It was a 2 or 3, 4 day event. I don't know how many days it was. But my friend and comrade Bill Sammons Jr. went on that trip and got saved on that trip. He has a radio station up here in Milford. That's when he got saved. A Methodist church up in Milford organized a trip to take youth group down, and he got on that bus with those kids. Wasn't his home church. Somebody invited him to go. Expo 72. So when he went to see the movie, it was like watching his history. Oh, it's cool stuff. Because kids taken all the way to Texas. We took a busload to Detroit in the Silver Dome. Yes, we did, and we lived to tell about it. I just have to add this in here just for your information. Friday night, my wife is in North Carolina with her sister at a rental house that her sister has that they had to fix up or get ready for rental season. And so I had 6 boys Friday night. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anna's boys, because she had to work, and we watched those. I had those 6. And then Saturday morning, Christy was also working that night, and Jason had to be over to the event that we sent our sound guys to, so he dropped her 2 off at 6:30. I had 8 boys at my house by myself, and there was no chaos. They didn't hear a word next door? My daughters came in, and I was in my right mind, and so were they. I am committed to their future. And if I need to be available, my comfort, I know why you all are laughing. 8? I wouldn't want 8. What are you going to do with 8? I want them. They're my future. I want the time to invest in them. I don't want them to ever think that they're my inconvenience. If that scenario made you think, oh, how inconvenient, check your heart. What if God sends us more people that need to be ministered to? And they're not an inconvenience to Him. He's looking for a place that He can send the orphan and the widow. Those that don't have anybody to care for them. That's what He's looking for. And if inconvenience makes our decisions, He cannot trust us with the treasures that are in earthen vessels. Don't get under condemnation, just volunteer. Chapter 18. See, when it comes time to take care of kids, say, oh my goodness, I'm glad that somebody else is doing that. No, say, I want my turn too. I need to learn to invest in what's important to you. It may not be what I call my gift, but it's my opportunity. All right, chapter 18, are we there? Jesus is talking to his disciples in verse 1. At that time, the disciples came to Jesus saying, "Who's the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" They got questions. So Jesus brings a child. He takes a child and sets it in the midst. He said, "Truly I say unto you, unless you're converted, unless you think differently and become like children, you won't enter the kingdom." He uses a child as an example of what it takes to be a part of the kingdom. Unless you become like a little child. Just like this. What is that child caring about? Not much. That's what adults take care of. If you become like them, you'll understand how this kingdom works and you can participate with joy. Stress is not a part of the kingdom. Let me say it again over here. I didn't hear anything over here. Stress is not a part of the kingdom. Amen. It's a consequence of you trying to manage kingdom stuff through the flesh. That's right. That's where stress comes from. Hebrews says, labor to enter into his rest. He's at rest, be at rest. Be confident in who he is. Don't stress. Be at rest. Chapter 19. So he used him as an example. Chapter 19, in verse number 13. And some children were brought to him. So now these mothers who have been out here with these, in the field where he's feeding 5,000, these moms, they've been seeing stuff, and they're bringing their kids. Maybe some of the dads too. I think particularly the moms. Bringing their kids. They want to get close to Jesus. They're not bringing them because they're sick. This isn't a group that's in crisis. This is a group that has an eye to the future. They're bringing their kids. And they're bringing them close, and the disciples are there, and these moms are getting close. They're kind of crowding in, and the disciples are getting a little disturbed because they got all these kids up there. They want to see the men. They want to see the adults, and they got all these kids pressing in, and these crazy women bringing their kids. Inconvenient kids. Those disciples weren't used to handling kids. They were handling important things. Baptizing people. The stuff that has to do with real ministry. Yeah, I said that. It's how we feel. I want to do real ministry. Somebody else can handle the kids. Amen, Pastor John. None of you said it. I might as well say it. I know how it works. The hardest thing to get volunteers for is children. Because you don't get all the applause. I can preach a message in here, and you all, that message changed my life. Oh, I get applause. Thank you very much. I needed that today. You go back in the kids' room, they don't ever say that to you. Have they ever said that to you, Luke? I'm so glad you were back here, Luke. You changed my life today. No, they don't say that. They're annoyed you won't let them out the door. But you know what? If you lead with strength, they appreciate the security, even if they buck against it. Who was the best teacher you ever had? The one that allowed chaos in their room? No. And so, they're bringing their kids, verse 13, that he might lay hands on them and pray. Why? Because they need to be healed? No. Because they want what's in him. They understand the principle of the laying on of hands. They want what's in him to be in their kids. Here, would you touch my kids? Here, I need you to touch my kids. Not because I want them fixed. Because I want them to enter into what you're doing. That's why we bring children. We want them to enter into and touch and participate. And these women had a vision for that, and the disciples rebuked them. We misunderstand the importance of children. We misunderstand. They are essential. Essential. So many times, I'll meet somebody, I go to this church over here. We're struggling because we don't have anybody under the age of 40. Got no kids in the church. And they don't have a future. Just when they die off, it'll be over. I mean, that happens a lot. And it's just a matter of how long can we not die? Not how can we live. How long can we not die? Do we have enough in the fund to pay somebody to minister here till we're all dead? And it's not that anybody set out to do that, but children are essential. They're essential. And so they're essential around here. I think we were counting up the other day. We might have 4 more on the way. Whoa, yeah. We're going to love every one of them. We're not too crowded yet. We're going to put a set of chairs right across the top over there. Hang a few from the ceiling over there. Let the children alone. Do not hinder them from coming to me. For the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. The kingdom of heaven belongs to them? I thought it belonged to me. No, it belongs to them. Why would I keep what belongs to them from them? How do they get to know that it belongs to them? When they get to do the same thing we do. When they get to practice the same thing we do. When they get to believe for the same thing that we do. So what's going to happen here in a few minutes is General Hamlet, my daughter, is going to bring the kids back, and they're going to be prepared in groups to pray, to minister, to lay hands. And so if you have a need, I would say a need. If you have a physical need, that's nice. If you have, well, maybe you don't think it's nice, but it'll be helpful. But we need volunteers to say, I'll go up and I've got a problem with my knee. Or I got headaches. I got a heart flutter. Whatever you may have, or I'm just having a hard time making a decision. I got fear. I got anxiety. And you can just share that with them, and what they're going to do is they're just going to, by faith, because they've been told they can do it, and they can act on what they've been told, they just should simply say, be healed in Jesus' name, or knee be healed, heart be healed. And we're going to give them a chance to step into the supernatural. Because you don't ever step into the supernatural if you don't do anything. That's a fact. As Billy Joe would say, there we go. That's the bottom line. Now, so let me say, Anna and the team back there have been preparing these young people for the opportunity to minister. Darby